Go. All right. So we are on. Try to make sure you share when it pops up on Facebook on your ends, everybody. I'll give it probably like 20 seconds or so to get everybody in the room, and we will get this conversation cracking. Hold on, sure. Popped up on my end.
Let me go add the people.
You see it. I haven't seen it pop up on my end yet. Do y'all see it? Because I can't.
Not yet.
Oh. There it is. Well, how'd you be the first one to find it, Kim? All right.
Your thing came up on my phone. So, like, when you sent the reminder, I already, like, subscribed to it or whatever. So,
gotcha. All right.
Your thing came up on my
sorry. All right. So those of y'all that are coming in, make sure you share as you're coming in. Make sure you share as you are coming in. If you know any educators of any type, any staff members, please get them on this live. We have a very, very, very wonderful panel for y'all tonight, and we are going to literally get down to the nitty gritty. So as you're coming in, make sure you share, and we will get this cracking. It's so good to be back with you all once again. And I thought that I was done last week, but we'll say that the Lord placed it upon my heart to talk about a very important subject that is near and dear to my heart, which is education. I am a proud counselor at Noble for Noble Charter Schools at Johnson College Prep. This is my second year, and honestly, the reason that I came to Chicago, Illinois. But even when I came to Chicago, I was blessed to meet some very pivotal and very smart and just out of the box thinkers and community leaders in their own right. And with the exception of one, these guys have become my friends, become my closest comrades, and I am so elated to have them on the screen tonight. So if you see me smiling a lot, it's because I really am excited about the guys that are on this screen. But before I do that, there's one person that is on this screen that is also that knows me like nobody else, and that guy is right underneath me. I want to introduce to everybody Mr. Ronnie Compton. Go ahead and greet us tonight.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Thank you to my big bro, Maurice. Thank you for having me. I believe everybody else is in Chicago, but I'm in Charlotte, so I'm representing the Queen City.
Yeah, Charlotte is a place near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, so I'm definitely grateful to be here tonight and excited about this conversation as a Black male educator and mentor. So
tell us what you do, where you from, where you graduated from, real quick.
All right, so originally I'm from Durham, North Carolina. It's the Bull City, 919 area. I came to Charlotte for college. I studied and graduated from Queen's University of Charlotte. And I just recently finished up my master's degree in higher ed, a Master of Science in Higher Ed from Southern New Hampshire University. Currently, I am a trio counselor at a high school where I serve 200 and about 65 students on a documented caseload. It's a Title I school, so if you don't know what that means, it's a low-income, poverty-stricken area. And I basically provide college access to the students that are on my caseload. Friday will wrap up my fourth year doing that. Prior to that, I worked in higher ed for a year in admissions. So that's a little bit about me.
All right. Let's go. Let me see. The Chicago boys. Let me see if I can do this in age order. All right. We're going to start with they say respect your elders. So I'm going to start with the oldest, which would be the Christopher Goins, I believe. Chris, why don't you come on up and greet us tonight?
Yeah, I am the oldest.
Thank you, Maurice, for facilitating this conversation for sure. This very serious conversation. And I'm grateful to just be in the space for all of you all. I am actually from Greensboro, North Carolina. I attended the North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, the #1 historically Black college in the entire world. And currently in Chicago. What brought me to Chicago, I came here to open up a school, to be the founding principal of what we now know as Butler College Prep. Butler College Prep has just become known to be a place where we celebrate Blackness and we affirm the identity of our kids. And we're unapologetic about our Blackness. And when the school first opened in 2013, it just wasn't the thing for the noble network of charter schools. So we have to kind of just push people thinking and normalize the thought that schools should be culturally relevant. That should be a normal thing. Currently, I am the Chief Equity Officer for Thrive Chicago, and I'm the Impact Community Leader for My Brother's Keeper initiative. In partnership with the Obama Foundation, I have the privilege to be leading President Obama's signature initiative that he launched in 2014 from the White House, and have many opportunities to just really lift up his vision, to provide a space where boys and women of color and their humanity is honored and respected in any and everything that they do. And that's what I've dedicated my life to doing. I find myself all the time in spaces advocating for boys and young men of color, and I just accept it. Wanted to be in this space. Thank you, Maurice, again.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being with us. Now, let me see. I think the next person, there's a little static, so y'all bear with me. I'm trying to find it. The next person, I think, is Dekevious Wilson. Why don't you go ahead and greet us tonight, DK?
What's up, everybody? My name is Dekevious Wilson. A lot of people know me as DK. I am originally from West Helena, Arkansas. I went to the University of Central Arkansas, where I got my degree in African and African American Studies and Theater, and I got my master's in higher ed in counseling. I'm here. I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the only fraternity. And also, what brought me to Chicago, it is twofold. I had to learn a lot of things from a new generation, and also they had to learn things from me. Working in I work at Morgan Park High School with the Becoming a Man program, also known as BAM, which is directly correlated with the My Brother's Keeper program. So I've worked a lot with Christopher Goins. To basically put it, I say teach common sense. We help individuals. We don't give them the answer. We put them on a path to finding their own answer. Let them know they have agency and autonomy to make the decisions for themselves. And so that's me.
All right. Next up would be Kelsey. No. Kelsey, why don't you greet us tonight, Mr. Kelsey King?
All right. Y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So my name is Kelsey King. Thank you again, Maurice, for having me on here. I am a proud member of the Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. Second best. We have no problem with being second because the second edition is always better than the first. I attended the Dillard University in New Orleans, Louisiana. I am a mentor. I founded a non-for-profit also called Without Reservation. Without Reservation is a mentoring program that also leads young people into walking into their futures, into their destinies. We do focus a lot with a lot of social and political issues that we're tackling every day. So we're trying to get our kids to be aware of what's going on around them. Something else about myself, I am a district manager at the Akira clothing store. So I oversee a chain of boutiques in Chicago right now. How did I get my start in education? I actually taught for 2 years at McNair Elementary School where I taught English, but I kind of left the Chicago public school system because I wanted to do more mentoring. And I felt like in the classroom, that's kind of hard to do when you have a bigger caseload of students. So that's a little bit about me. Yeah.
Last but not least is the baby boy of this bunch tonight, Mr. Deion Owens.
Not the baby boy. Thanks, Maurice, for putting this show together. I think kind of like every guy on the show has said, I think that the topics that we're going to cover tonight are crucial and they need to be in conversation. And I thank you for building the brain and the team to truly talk about and tackle those issues. I'm Deion. I'm from Chicago, the south side of Chicago, the Wild Hundreds, where Chris decided to build a school before my time. But we're gonna let that ride. I received my degree from Roosevelt University in English and sociology. I was an English teacher, which is where I met Maurice in the Noble Network. And now I've transitioned over into the North Lawndale community and North Lawndale College Prep, where I serve as the assistant principal. I'll keep it brief so we can get right into it.
All right, so let's jump right in. We have a lot that we're going to try to exhaust tonight. Let me be clear, as I said before, we don't have all of the answers. But I think if we can at least get the conversation started, it will lend us some fruitful bearings, if you will, going forward. So I do not know where the static is coming from. I'm going to try to figure out. Let me see. It might be me. Can you all hear me? Still can hear me? All right. I don't know what that is. All right. So anyway. One word to describe how you feel in our present society. I'm going to start with Chris. One word to describe how you feel right now.
One word. Wow. Honestly, I'm hopeful.
All right. Kelsey, one word to describe how you feel right now with where we are.
Inspired.
All right. DK.
One word that describes how I feel is intrigued.
Ronnie.
My word was hopeful. I'm gonna stick with that.
All right. And Deion.
I think I'm encouraged.
Interesting. I think if I had one word, it would be optimistic. Given everything that has transpired, I told somebody the other day, for some reason, I don't know if it's my spirit or whatever it is, something about this particular time just seems different. This is a different type of protest. This is a different type of marching. This is a different type of uprising. I don't think any of us have ever seen before. And I am very optimistic about that. So here's the first question of the night. So I'm going to give this question to Deion. Given the present state of the world, how do you develop a strong partnership between teacher and parent? Do you feel the parents value teachers more now since quarantine?
Oh, absolutely. One thing that we've really pushed at North Lawndale is like teachers, especially now, like we need to maximize and capitalize on the relationships that we're building with scholars more than ever before. And I think that it's been something that we kind of talked about. It's been a theme throughout the year, but I think that right now more than ever, kind of like I said, those relationships is really what's going to warrant our student engagement, because in our current time, it's truly going to worsen the educational deficit that our Black and Brown students already are experiencing in the nation. And in order to truly combat that and minimize that, we need to have peer relationships with teachers. It becomes difficult, especially when you do have white staff, but I think that just pushing white staff members to truly be honest and to speak up for our Black kids, and I don't think that that is a post on Facebook at all. I think that that is absolutely, talking to Black kids about the realities of white privilege and the privilege that they have constantly when they come in front of our students, and just owning up to it, and being authentic in it, in the nature of also advocating for our students and teaching our students how to advocate for themselves. And so we're truly pushing parents and teachers to bridge those gaps and have those conversations because we are asking teachers to contact teachers, parents a lot more often, especially now that students are virtual, to once again rectify that engagement issue. But truly, just like that communication part is being asked through constant communication with the parent. And of course, as we go back, we'll look at like what that means for the fall, and we have to have those crucial conversations and bring this parents in for town halls and things of that nature.
Ronnie, same question. Given the present state of the world, how would you best describe or best develop the teacher-parent partnership?
So I think that this time has really like given the teacher and both the parent like a new understanding of how important the role of a teacher is and how important the role of a parent is. And really, like in this time where everything went from being in person to being virtual, and our students still had to learn, and grades were still due, assignments were still due. I think teachers, well, let me say this: I think parents truly have a newfound respect for teachers and what they do, and the hard work that they put in to make sure that their student is successful. And I think parents have now understand, and they have, they're understanding how important their role as a parent is in the life of their child. Because, when your child is in school, you're not with your child all the time. You with your child less at home, than your child, than you are, any other time. So I think this time has really probably brought the teacher and both the parent to where they can see both sides. I think the other part of that is I think parents have seen how their children really act and who their children really are during this time, because, talking to parents myself, parents are tired of their children, and any summer program that they can send their children to, they are, because they need a break. But I think they have truly found a newfound respect for teachers and appreciate teachers, not just teachers, admin, support staff, just everybody, coaches, just on a different level now because of everything that we had to literally turn over and do because of COVID-19.
I wholeheartedly agree. I had two very interesting things happen to me. One was a parent saying, "I can't wait until y'all open these doors so I can get this boy out of my house." And then the flip side was the kid said, "I can't wait until y'all open these doors so I can get away from my mama." So I think there's a newfound appreciation for both sides, the student and the parent, as it relates to what we do. Chris, this question is for you. The untimely calls for school closure perhaps threw a lot of us off, students, parents, and staff. Can we truly say we were prepared for this sudden shift in our new normal? Why or why not?
No, we weren't prepared. And I think that everybody at the highest levels and at the lowest levels can really attest to that. I think this current crisis, this current situation is going to change the educational landscape forever. It's going to change the way that teachers are trained in undergrad, the way that teachers are trained in pre-service programs, or any type of Teach for America or anything. There has to be an intense component around online and incorporating technology into education. I also think that we are going to have to think differently around how we re-engage students, especially boys and young men of color during this crisis. If you think about it, and we've all seen the data, we've all seen the numbers. Not all students have access to technology or have access to broadband internet in their homes. So we have to think about how to re-engage, recover, and help these young people heal, and we know that they are in our communities. So no, to answer the question, we weren't prepared, but we can get prepared for them coming back. And I think that's the unique opportunity that we have.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Subsequent question. I'm going to flip this one.
You don't stop calling me sir and call me old man on here.
We'll talk offline. I promise I don't mean no harm. I promise I don't. For those of you that don't know, me and Chris are actually pretty close in age, so I don't want to make it seem like he's the oldest person on this screen.
It was you. It's you.
We're very close in age. All right. Here's a subsequent question to that one. And I'm going to throw this to Deion. Should schools be 100% virtual in the fall, or should we try a more hybrid approach so that both teachers and students can embrace the remote learning society if we were ever to be pushed back into remote learning?
Yeah, I don't think 100% virtual is going to be a reality, and I don't think that, from what I've seen, it has warranted any result that we truly need for our students. I think the fact of the matter is, Black students are relationship oriented, and that relationship is really what oftentimes drives that engagement, that academic identity, and that desire to be in school. And so I think that we do need to think of like a hybrid system where scholars are coming in maybe 2-3 times a week, and then we are also virtual as well. But once again, it goes back to like the fact that like an achievement gap is already existing, and we know it has existed for many years. This is going to do nothing but widen that gap. So we need to do as much as possible to start rectification. So absolutely, a hybrid schedule is by far the smarter choice. Virtual is not where it is. It's not going to push our kids academically. There's no way, students being at home, school is oftentimes a safe haven for our students, right? They come here because they feel safe. They can thrive in these environments. So when you keep them in the environment where toxic behaviors are, being taught and being truly, just passed down, then we can't expect true learning to happen. So we have to have our kids and our babies back into our buildings.
Absolutely. I'm going to shift this a little bit. So buckle your seatbelt because it's probably going to be a bumpy ride from this point forward. All right. So next question I'm going to give to DK and then Kelsey. So DK in particular, parenting as we know it in the Black community has seen sudden shifts. Is it the job of the educator? Is the job rather of the educator becoming more difficult because of the lack of parenting at home?
You want to get messy.
Okay.
Was that too much?
So, I had a
I'm
couple
so
of
glad I didn't get
threats.
the question.
Okay.
So yes, let's just put it out there. Yes, it has become more difficult for counselors, social workers, and teachers who are in the classroom every day because you come in, the bell rings, students come in, you literally have to chip away at all of the unknown things that happened from the night before till they got to your classroom. Then maybe 20 minutes before class ends, you're really just getting good into the curriculum or whatever that you're doing with the students. And then the bell rings. It has. And I think one of the things that I have realized during this quarantine is that, again, like you said earlier, parents are realizing who their children, who their students are. And their students are realizing who their parents are. And they're literally getting to know their roommates. This is like, oh, you're literally, because I don't know who you are. I know more about your child. I've had conferences all the time. I know more about your child than you do. Granted, there's other things that plays into that. Some parents work 2 to 3 shifts. The student has to be the dad or the mother because they're getting their little siblings together. It's definitely different and more of a struggle for educators when it comes to that.
All right. Stick with DK for a second. What would you say? Let me flip that. Would you say that a lot of this is due to, as my grandmother would say, children parenting children? And what are the mental dysfunctions of that?
Okay. What we have to like really come to grips is that the African American community has a lot of unidentified mental health issues. We do not believe, some of us, counseling, going to a counselor is the newest fad within the Black community. It's becoming one of those, we're realizing, oh, like this person, I really do need to talk to someone that doesn't know me, because we've been told just pray about it, or, you know, we don't talk about it. So with the quarantine, the outside noise is being silenced and the inside noise is becoming more loud, right? And we're learning about ourselves. You know, we're experiencing depression. We're, you know, experiencing schizophrenia. All these things going on within our community are now happening in the home right now, and parents of students are bumping heads. And to go back to what you said, kids raising kids, a lot of our young parents, they only know how to be parents from who was parents to them, if that makes sense. So, you know, if they didn't have one, you know, everybody is growing up. There's a difference between being raised versus growing up. And I've realized that working with, you know, students. And so you look at a parent and be like, I see exactly why your daughter or your son acts the way that they act, because it's a learned behavior. It's their, you know, nature versus nurture, you know, the environment that they're in.
Wow. All right. So, Kel, how do we fix it? Being that a lot of educators and mentors have to take the place of the parent. How do we fix it? Or do we fix it?
I think the reality of it is DK explained it very well. First off, it starts with psychological evaluation, right? So a lot of people need to be psychologically evaluated, especially from a parental standpoint. Just because you birth a child, that does not make you fit to like raise that child. And I think that is one of the big things that we have to really look at. What qualifies a parent to be a parent? I think that if a child is born into a home where it's extremely, extremely dysfunctional, where they have no food to eat, where they're raising themselves, I don't think that that is a standard that should be tolerated in our country and even around the world, that parents should subject children to that, because then what you have is broken children, and broken children break other people. So the broken break the broken. And I think that that is a continual cycle that we're seeing. And so what happens is, how can the teacher or the educator or the mentor do that? I think first things first, we have to have real didactic conversations. And that starts with understanding where the child is, where the family is, and recognizing our job as the teacher or the mentor is not to separate the two. I think a lot of times we as the mentors or we as the educators, we fight against their parental authority, and we as the mentor try to take the place of the parental authority. Well, the reality of it is that our job is to be in collaboration with them and to work with them, because as we are parenting or mentoring the child, we are also probably going to end up mentoring the parent. So we have to understand that our job is twofold, that we would have to deal with also the child, but we also have to deal with the parent. And so to answer your question, I think that's what we have to do. We have to understand the workload that is ahead of us, that we have to also help the child, but also lead the family as well. Because guess what? In the Black family, that is a lot of what we're seeing. I mean, you see it in churches. A lot of things that people did not learn in schools, they learn from their churches. And 9 times out of 10, and I'm not trying to be funny when I say this, half the time the churches is teaching it wrong anyway. So it does, you know, so we have a continual cycle of learning something incorrectly. And so what happens is kids say, well, how do I get through this? Or how do I do this, that, the other? And you don't have real solutions or real answers. So guess what they do? They turn to the streets. And so then the streets become their educators. So I think that it's our job as the educator and as the mentor to educate the family and also work with the family to help raise the child, because it's going to take a village. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to shift gears again. I like to give that warning just so nobody's caught off guard. So in Chicago in particular, most of you saw it all over the news. We had very, for lack of a better word, severe rioting going on. One of the things that threw me off guard was being on the phone with one of my colleagues, actually being on the phone with my boss, and she was walking back to her house, and in walking back to her house, one of our students passed by her yelling her name with an arm full of stuff that they just looted. And so it forced our staff to basically take a deeper dive, like, hey, do you know where your child is? And in some of those conversations, some of the parents were like, yeah, I sent him out there. So how in the world do we, as Kelsey said, raise the child when the parent has a little bit of a false narrative going on in their own mind, whether, you know, rioting or looting in their mind is right or wrong? Like, how do we differentiate or separate the two? And I hate to sound biblical, but how do we make sure that the wheat and tear grow together, but they're separate? Kels, I see you.
You know, the funny thing about that scenario is that you said that the child saw their authority and said, hey, how you doing? Like, there is no fear, there's no revere, there's no reverence. Like, usually when we were growing up, if we saw somebody that lived next door to our parents and we were doing something wrong, we would try to hide from them, duck behind cars and things of that nature. And I think that that's interesting, because when you talk about the wheat and tear growing together, I think a lot of times, again, it's oppression, right? So we're seeing a rise of a lot of people that are hurting, that are broken, that are mentally unstable, emotionally unstable, and they don't have a real sense of direction for leading their own lives. So how can they lead literally a child? And I think that's where that's coming in. Like, they are mentally, emotionally unstable. And so because they're mentally and emotionally unstable, they are teaching their kid what they know, like DK said. So literally, it's just a cycle that's being passed down. And how do you do that? I would really have to say we have to really define what true parenting is in this country, and what does that look like. So.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Deion, DK, and then Chris. Deion.
And I like that, Kelsey, but I think that like it becomes a little bit more difficult, especially in my experience. Like, I never want to tell a parent how to parent. I don't have children. I can say what I think it means to parent and things like that, and I can tell them things that like I do. This is what you should do, but I don't tell a parent how to parent. But my job does say that I teach a student how to student, right? And so, like, as much as we are trying to, we can't teach kids to unlearn things, but we can teach them to suppress behaviors, right? And I think that shows even more the importance of like schools and getting scholars back into schools, because schools should be that floor of like, whatever the trauma is you experience at home, whatever it is that you see on the street, this isn't the space for it. I'm going to teach you how to conduct yourself in the most professional of spaces at all times, with high expectations and love, right? And I think that oftentimes in the streets, love is not high expectations, but when you come into the schoolhouse, that's exactly what it should be. And as much as we monopolize on that and the relationship that teachers are having with scholars, and constantly reinforcing the behaviors that we want to see, whether that's with incentives or consequences, whatever that is, or just crucial conversations, like, we need to work on our end to make sure that like scholars know you're going to experience this. This is what you're going to see. But ultimately, this is how you should behave when you are in this type of situation over and over again, because the consequences are too dire. The gravity of the situation for students that look like everybody on this call is just too severe. And so I didn't grow up in the best household, right? I grew up with a parent, right, that was addicted to drugs. But I made something out of it because schooling was my safe place, where I learned that these are the behaviors that you have to emulate over and over again to get out of this situation, so you won't have to emulate that.
Absolutely. DK.
So what I was going to say is, like, what we're seeing when it comes to the rioting and the looting is 400 years plus maybe of a promise that hasn't been made good. You know, you go to the 40 acres and a mule. Now I'm going to get into my like Black history, and that wasn't fulfilled. Then you go into sharecropping, which created generational debt, not wealth. Then you're going into the war on drugs. We're still dealing with issues from the crack epidemic. And then what I've realized is this, right? Is that I grew up, all of us, I can say we're degreed and we're educated. We're an anomaly. We're a part of that talented tenth that W.E.B. Du Bois talked about. But when we go back, we have to realize and take off our rose-colored lenses that we're dealing with individuals who grew up on survival. And so when, case in point, first night I was out there, didn't loot anything, but I wanted to be amongst my people. There was this young man who walked past me, and he had a box, and he was talking to his friends on FaceTime, like, yeah, I got this. Can't say the words that he said, and his friends was like, what you got? And he looked at the box, and he was like, I don't know what this is. And I looked at the box, and I said, that's a pressure cooker. I'm like, what are you going to do with a pressure cooker? But the fact that he was able to obtain something, that's what we're dealing with. People who have not been able to obtain something had a chance to obtain something, and they took advantage of it. So now when people, who look like us talk about the looting and the rioting, I kind of like remind them, like, listen, if you were promised something for so long and you don't get it, eventually you realize that this is oppression and I need to do something to get something that I need, that I deserve as a human being, as a citizen of this country. So we're dealing with individuals. There's that wealth gap that we're dealing with too. And so when you look at the wealth gap between our community and other communities, yeah, we're going to continue to see looting and rioting as, decades go on, because this is not the first time we've done it.
Wow.
Yeah. I think that people oftentimes forget, and I'm agreeing with my brother DK, and I think we need to think differently on the narrative around the looting. And our looting in our community and the young people that are doing the looting. We can't forget that we are in a pandemic. And in a pandemic, about 38 million people have lost their jobs. And I'm coming from my own personal experience of being a founding principal of 103rd and Pullman. And I may have kids who came into Butler in the 9th grade who struggle to read, but what understanding of the world around them and the ecosystem around them and how institutional racism is impacting them. Kids come into my school in the 9th grade understanding that. And so, I went out a couple of days and I wanted to just view and see it in the South Side. And I made that point about an incoming 9th grade student and understanding their ecosystem, because when I rolled around, I saw that they looted beauty supply stores. They looted Walmart. They looted Walgreens. They looted the gas station. They looted Nike. But for the exception of Nike, none of these businesses are owned by us, and none of these businesses are putting things back into the community. And so these people knew that. These young people knew that. They knew, we don't touch the barbecue joint. We don't touch Harold's Chicken. So we have to give them credit. They know what they were doing. I'm not condoning it. To my brother DK, we have to think about the historical context here. And I never want us to get to a point where we are judging our young people, because they knew exactly what they were doing, and very strategic and very intelligent about it. And Deion and I ran into a young man over in Hyde Park. We got another story, but we may not need to say that publicly. But a looter. But anyway,
All right. So Ronnie, along those same lines, most of our educators, especially Black male educators, teach in what we call Title I schools. And a lot of them have talked about how they have saved a massive amount of money by not being in the physical building. What would be the best use of the money we have saved going forward as it relates to our kids?
I'll jump in. I'm sorry, Ronnie. I'll jump in. I quick. I really do think that one of the things that I'm pushing for in my brother's keeper, one of the things that we're working on behind the scenes, is that we have saved money, and I do believe that we can reallocate some of that money. And going back to the point I made earlier around re-engagement, recovery, and healing for boys and young men of color, and for all students that have been grossly impacted by this pandemic. Could we reallocate some of that money to say, hey, schools, we would love for you to partner with an outside mentoring organization? Could this be more moments for more opportunities for BAM and WOW to get involved in schools? Because we've saved a lot of money in that. And I think we have to think about the recovery and healing and re-engagement of our kids. And like we have to make mentorship a necessity and not just a nice thing to have. Mentors, research has proven that mentorship is very critical and important and has an incredible impact on academics. That's why I love BAM, youth guidance, and WOW. So Ronnie, that's it.
No worries. One thing that I was going to say, I've had a lot of students that have been affected as far as scholarships and college entry. I've had a lot of students who pre-pandemic, were slated to go to a four-year university, had scholarships, this and that. But when the pandemic started, and then now, during the pandemic, due to parents losing their jobs or just money being very scarce, some of those same students are having to go to technical colleges, and having to sit out from the dream schools or even not go to school at all to get jobs to help with the family bills. So I would say that some of the money that has been saved, why don't we invest back into our children, and provide scholarships and use that money to, give them opportunities that they, were not afforded due to the COVID-19. So I would just say invest in that back into our students.
All right, let's shift gears again. All right, I'm not going to give this to a particular person, so get in where you fit in, as my mama would say. All right, so Black boys in particular face more disciplinary issues than any other subset on our campuses, and more often than not, these disciplinary issues come about at the hands of our white colleagues. More often than not, usually through removal, suspensions, what have you, possible expulsions, and that disciplinary tool is sometimes used as a weapon. How do we force, and I use the word force gingerly, how do we force our white counterparts to learn to properly educate our young men of color instead of taking the easy way out, which is kicking them out of class?
Okay. So let's go. So my biggest question has always been every year, Freshman Connection, we getting ready for professional development days. Do you want to be here? Do you love serving the community that you're in? Do you have any biases, anything that will hinder you from giving the best to our students? Are you afraid to challenge our students? Then if so, we might need to rethink some things. There always have to be a inward check. There has to be an inward check when it comes to our white brothers and sisters teaching our scholars. And the professional development and the development throughout the year has to be intentional. You have to have, there has to be case studies that are reviewed. There has to be conferences with we need more social workers in the school anyway, but they are a very pivotal piece when it comes to this. I think you throw the ball into their court and you just be real and honest with them. And then from there, you guide them with the development and the training that is needed to handle our scholars. And, to me, it's just as plain as day. Do you want to be here? If you got a problem with Black kids, we don't need you here. If you have a problem with Hispanic kids, we don't need you here. Because more often than not, they live up north, but they just drive down south.
Absolutely.
So that's an indicator. So you have to do a gut check.
Yeah. This is something that's very near and dear to my heart. And along those lines of what DK just said, I do want to bring up the point. It's not our responsibility to make them understand their own biases. It's their responsibility. It's not our responsibility to make them anti-racist. So that's the work that you need to do. And so what I think that we are at a critical point right now, this is the moment where we can see policy, we can see things and create things that will change it forever. So there's one thing as all men of color, we all know that one thing as educators, the one thing that we never, ever want to be accused of as an educator. And I'll complete the sentence. It's really, we never want to be accused of any type of sexual inappropriate activity as an educator or working in a school or working with kids. That behavior is normalized. Why in the hell have we not normalized racist bullshit that happens in our schools? Now it's time to put it on paper. Teacher X, if you do this or say this to a kid, your ass is fired. Period. That's the way I feel. I'm telling you, because I got real passion on that. Sorry.
I love it, Chris, because that's real, and I think that those authentic conversations, they have to be had. Like whenever I hire a white teacher, when I'm looking at a white teacher, because I do think that white teachers offer value, and I do think that I've met some of the greatest white teachers, and they can push our students the most. But I want to know, one, do you see color? Because if you give me bullshit that you don't see color, then you don't see all that my Black kids go through, and I don't want you. If you don't understand that they are Black and they are brown, I don't need you in my building, right? And secondly, how does your white privilege affect you and our scholars? Not what do you think about white privilege or any of that shit? You have it, we know it. Now talk about it. How is it affecting our scholars, and what are you going to do? Because oftentimes what I'm seeing, kind of to Chris's point, I'm walking in and it may not be what they're saying, but it's absolutely how they're pushing our scholars. Right? Because the bullshit that I'm seeing in some of the classrooms, I would never allow in an 8th grade classroom for my child, let alone for a junior or senior in high school. Right? Or when I have a senior English teacher telling me that they don't think that the students should be reading rigorous collegiate text, that's bullshit. You don't need to be in front of these Black kids. Right? And so to Chris's point, like there's no talking anymore, right? Like we can't talk about the situation. It's too dire right now. You need to get on board or get the fuck off. It's one or the other.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're cussing now. Y'all just gave me permission.
You done hit
on the next question.
You might be down to pivot. You done hit a nerve.
But and I'm gonna tell you why I asked the question. Before I came to Chicago, and I think I spoke to Ronnie about this one time. I had a teacher at my old school that would call me literally almost every day to come to her classroom and deal with student X. And like, it was just becoming a thing. And it's like, I know she knew that I had like somewhat of a fatherly relationship with that particular student, but it kind of got to me. I kind of went off on her. And I probably shouldn't have, but I had taken enough. I literally said to her, if you remove this student every single day, the problem is no longer with the student. The problem is with you. Because every time you remove this kid, he's coming back to your class the next day. So why don't you put on, your big boy pants and literally figure out what the real issue is? And literally, when I told her to do that, we found out that there was an issue going on at home that he was literally just acting out about. But had I not, go ahead.
You speak a great point, though, Mo. And I just want to jump in and say this. I think that while everything that everybody has said is great and true, like I've had some experiences with, white teachers that have been amazing. I mean, more invested than any other, race of teacher that's in the school. But I think that one thing that we do as Black male educators very well, and even as Black educators, we have that relational connection with our Black students. We know how to build relationships. We understand that relationships is in the center of that child respecting us, that child, desiring to learn, or whatever the case. We understand that relationship building is that center. So I think that's one thing that our white counterparts don't always have. It's like if this student is being disruptive, instead of trying to build that relationship and that rapport and finding out exactly what is going on, I'd rather just kick you out and let somebody else deal with you because I'm trying to teach a class and I don't have time. But if I had a relationship with you, I could understand that you're experiencing some deep rooted trauma at home that is spilling over into school. But because I don't take that time to get to know you and to develop that relationship with you, I'd rather just have you removed. So I think that's one of the biggest things. We have to understand how important and vital and intentional relationship building is with our scholars.
So, Kel, how often? I'm coming to you, DK. How often than not do you see trauma? I should say mismanaged trauma outside of the four walls of the school that possibly could have been dealt with in the school before it got to you as a mentor? How often?
So actually, it's interesting that you guys are talking about this. I actually started teaching because of this issue. I was trained actually to be a support to an English teacher. She was a white counterpart of mine, and she could not control the classroom. She was sending 14 students out saying that I can't handle it. I can't name the school because then I'll get in trouble. But she basically didn't know how to engage. And so, like we were talking about with the trauma, and when it gets back to like a mentor, I think the problem is, just again, like a lot of you guys have already said, it's about just identifying what is the real issue with the child and taking the time instead of just sending them out of the class. How about we just have a conversation with them? And then, like, I believe it was Deion that says, if you're going to be a part of this school, be a part of this culture, deal with these types of students, you have to be willing to understand that it requires a little bit more. Like sometimes you won't be able to just get off at 4 o'clock. Sometimes you're going to have to sit and have that conversation with that parent afterwards. And you.
Luke's here. All right, DK, you up?
Okay, right. So one of the two things, right? Well, I'll just bring it back to this. What I do on the flip side of that conversation with the teachers is I also go back to my scholars and talk to them about being self-advocates. Because a lot of the time, like in what I do as a counselor, I help turn the mirror around to them and show them and help them see where they could have had more agency in the situation, had more agency. Did you really have to cuss out that teacher? Did you really have to hit this student? Like, let's see, like, how you could have handled this differently, right? And so I said, what's wrong with telling someone, your teacher or your counselor, what's going on in your life so that they can better make accommodations for you? Because a lot of the times is that, I see now, I'm not negating the fact that we have to put a mandate on our non-Black teachers. We do. We have to put a mandate on them.
My bad. Sorry, guys. Yeah.
But also, as we would be remiss as educators and mentors if we didn't put a mandate on our young scholars as well. Because once they go over that threshold of high school, they go out into the real world. And so it's kind of like having that talk about the police when you're young. you really have to prime and prep yourself on what self-advocacy looks like, because closed mouths don't get fed. We've heard that. All of us have heard that before. So if I'm trying to manage a class of 30, right, and you have an issue, I don't know what's going on. You're going to have a conversation with me. But I do also have a personal responsibility of trying to seek out what's going on with you as well. Effectively communicating.
So that actually opened my mind to another question that I gotta hold it, because I know you got some more on this topic. Kels, you got some more?
You say what?
So my whole thing was just literally going. I just heard a little bit of what DK was saying. Again, teaching the kids about, like, again, how to advocate for themselves, but also I think we have to, as teachers, pair up with those programs like BAM, pair up with those programs like WOW, because what you may not be able to say to that child, their mentor might be able to. And I think
Absolutely.
that's the thing. We have separated the two. You know, a mentor is for mastery. A teacher is going to teach you principles. So I think personally, in my opinion, that if you work with your mentors or whatever extracurricular activities, you know, for me, I had a track coach. So when I got into things, my track coach was that other voice that would steer me in the right direction. But we can't, as teachers, be threatened of the mentor and think that the mentor is trying to come in and take over your classroom. Because that was a big issue for me at the school that I worked at, that they thought that because I knew the kids, that I was trying to take over their classrooms, or they felt threatened because I could make them sit down and be quiet. Well, how do you get them to do that? It's because, again, I believe that everything is relational. I believe someone talked about that earlier. If you develop relationship with kids, they're going to advocate for themselves. They're going to come to you. They're going to trust you. They're going to be open to you. And then you won't have to send them out, because your word, they will literally take to heart. If they know that they're doing something that's going to personally offend the classroom and you and your job, they're going to sit back and reflect on it like, no, I don't want to make Mr. Kelsey mad today, because, you know, he helped me out yesterday. And this, that, the other. They remember that, because kids are also relational. And I think sometimes we forget that kids are human beings. So they respond, they have feelings and things of that nature. And just because we are the teachers or because we are the mentors, that does not mean that we get to totally negate what they're going through, how they're feeling, and what they're experiencing in their personal lives as well. Because we have personal lives, and so do they. They're going back home to families that may not be just totally put together, and they need a voice, and they need somebody that's not going to push them away. In a world where everybody, I feel like most of the times people are pushing children off to somebody else, and after a while you get tired of being pushed, so you're going to just stop showing up. And that's what a lot of my cases is with the Austin High School. A lot of teachers, they push them and say, well, you're bad, you this, you did that, and the other. So if you're going to keep telling me that my entire time of being here, why do I need to come? So those are the questions that we really, you know, we have to understand that kids are relational, and how do we build systemic and sturdy relationships with them? So that would be something I would say to deal with the trauma issue.
Kelsey, can you say that one thing you just said? You said mentors create mastery. Something that was a
Yeah.
was good.
So mentors are for mastery. Teachers are for principles. The job of the teacher is to teach principles, to teach them how to, you know, navigate through life, how to work with things such as reading, math, science, social studies. The mentor is to teach them how to master a certain skill or a certain behavior, how to overcome that thing. So usually what I do is, when I do mentoring, I tell people, like, there's a certain type of kid that I know I can mentor. I can't mentor all kids. Like, and I think if we understood that, just like I know, like certain teachers, we can't teach all subjects, and that's okay. I mean, we all have our giftings and our strengths. That's why you apply for the position that best fits you. So with me, I know I'm not a teacher. I can't, you know, that's not my lane, but I can mentor. And the kids that you mentor are 9 times out of 10 the kid you used to be. That I think that most people will understand it. The kid you used to be is the kid you're going to be drawn to in the school. The kid that doesn't have a father figure, that was easy for me because I didn't have one. So I knew where to come from. I knew how to relate. The kid that had a mother on drugs, I knew how to deal with that because I had a mother on drugs. Every experience is not my experience. I'm not privileged. I didn't grow up in a privileged household, so I did not know how to deal with like certain white students that would come. I would tell them that's not me. I can refer you to somebody. And I didn't feel any little. I didn't feel indifferent. I didn't feel small. I didn't feel any of that. I just knew what was my lane, and I stayed in my lane. And that's how we were able to work together in the school system so that these kids can graduate and also so that they can get to their futures. Because at the end of the day, it's about the child. It's not about your personal, your personality and your pride. It's not about that. It's about getting this kid to success. And so if we got to work together to do that, we got to figure out how we can do that well together. So, yeah.
DK?
Everything Kelsey said. It's role confusion. Simply put, role confusion. Like me, I grew up, quote unquote, on a different side, other side of the tracks. As soon as I walked into Morgan Park High School, they knew I wasn't from around Chicago. I had on a cardigan and had a couple Starbucks. So they all had already tried to give me the flux. But one thing I made it known is like, I'm here to learn from you, and I have things that I feel that you can learn from me. And there goes that relationship piece, right? You have to know how to build relationship. Everything Kelsey said. Because if you go in as Joe Clark, yeah, you might reach some kids, but you won't reach them all, and I think with teachers sometimes they feel like, and this really, a hurt dog will always holler. So if a teacher is really, talking about, well, I think this person is trying to take over, it's not that this person is trying to take over, is that this person actually invested time in building a relationship. Maybe that's a trait that you need to learn.
Absolutely.
I think oftentimes for white teachers, I just have to ground them in their why. Like, I have to ground everything I do and everything that our school stands for and why the hell we do what we do. And I think that oftentimes when you ground that and when you're consistent with that messaging, it forces people. This year we had an exodus of white staff just leave, right? At the end of our school years, teachers who have been there for many years, because we are in turnaround, right? And we have to ground what the hell we are doing in our why. Why? Because we understand that for Black kids, education is many times liberation, right? And so why are we doing this? Going back to it over and over again. Why can't you kick Black kids out? Because the school to prison pipeline is still real as fuck. That's the fact of the matter. It hasn't been in conversation, hasn't been on the television lately, but we know that everything that you are doing, kicking Black kids out, that is no different than cops using egregious behavior to kill Black men on the street. It all aligns, right? And so you can't say that you're an advocate for the community and that you're an ally for the community, but you're continuing to show these behaviors over and over again. So I'm going to ground you in the why, and I'm going to force you to be consistent. I'm going to put fire under your ass to make sure that you understand that my Black kids and what I expect for my Black kids is the same thing that you expect for your white kids, right? And just like constantly grounding them in that I'm going to hold this because this means success for not only this Black child, but this Black family and future generations, right? We're breaking generational curses, right? And that's why we do what we do. And so just constantly reinforcing that for white people and white teachers over and over again. Because once again, I don't think that they're all bad. Not at all. But I do think that someone need a fire under their ass and no excuses. At this point, excuses aren't acceptable.
Absolutely. Guys, y'all have hit it on the head, and I'm so appreciative. I want to add another caveat now, because we talk about our Black boys a lot, but we really don't talk about our Black girls to the extent that we talk about our Black boys. And one of the things that I personally faced this year was an uptick, if you will, of Black girl on Black girl violence, if you will. And so my question is it happening because we have put the focus solely on our boys and not the girls? Or is there another issue that is becoming prevalent that we're not addressing?
I think we have spent too much time at separate tables when it comes to male versus female, if you will. Because a lot of the things, our boys handle the same, it can be the same issue. Say, for instance, there's always something that is said on social media, right? The young men will handle it differently than the young women. We automatically expect our young women to have a full out brawl. And, we see it on, the videos get passed around and all that kind of stuff. The guys handle it differently. I think with our young ladies, there are needs that I, as a male, self-identified man, cannot fulfill. And there has to be systems in place to help our young women. But also, me as a self-identified male, I have to make sure I'm competent in the best practices of handling our young women. And with that, I am, if a young lady, it never fails. Every year, I get a young girl that comes to my classroom. I want to be in BAM. Well, sis, we need to have a conversation. Because we do have working on womanhood, which is wow. But they are eager to, they really want to know what's inside of a man's head when it comes to issues and stuff like that. I allow the conversations, but I don't withhold the resources that a young lady might need.
That's really powerful. Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
Can you repeat the question? I want to make sure I heard it correctly.
So basically, have we put too much attention on our black boys and not enough or equal with the black girls? And is there another issue that's becoming prevalent that we're lively unaware of?
I don't think that we've put too much attention on black males because they are the lowest from the goal. And if our focus is equity, then that's equity at its best. Equity means you focus on the lowest of the low. I do. This may sound very cliche or anything, but you think about what our young people are digesting and what they're seeing on television. They watch Love and Hip Hop. It's a demonstration of girls. The guys on Love and Hip Hop, they have a little beef, but they be like, whatever, But they're seeing over and over so many representations. I think television and the media has normalized that type of fighting amongst girls. And that is, I think, is a problem that needs to be explored. So that's all I'll say.
Absolutely. Kels?
I was gonna say, so like with that, Chris, that's like perfect, like right on with what I was gonna talk about with the boy versus girl. And DK said a little bit of it too. If you think about men, we're more logical, right? So like we think more, like that it's a whole like proverb in the Bible, I believe, that talks about when I was a child, I spake as a child, understood as a child, and then I put away childish things and I began to think as a man. And I think that's the paradigm of most young men. They think and then they respond on certain things. Sometimes because we're more logical, we're more prone to logic. Women are more emotional. They're more in tune with expressing their emotions and how they feel. Whereas most guys, you're not going to see that. If they get it takes a lot for them to express how angry they are, how frustrated they are. Because it literally, it would have to be so many different events that occur during that day in order for that kid to just lash out on that teacher. So I feel like with females, we have to appeal more to their emotions and make sure that we are doing things like more emotional intelligence. Whereas with men, more appealing more to their logic. So that's something even Sigmund Freud talks about that a lot, like in his studies, about how we are to appeal to an emotional place, emotional intelligence with females, and more of a logical place with male. So I think that that's something that we need to see. And like DK said, make sure that they're sitting both at the table, having those conversations with both parties, because where one may be lacking in one area, the other one can pick it up. So I think that those conversations shouldn't be separate. I think that those conversations should be put together, because also our kids are dating more and having these relationships and becoming more pregnant than any other age bracket. So we need to talk about those types of things, especially if they're going to be dating and possibly, you know, these lovers and all this extra stuff. So I think that that conversation has to be had together, because they're going to date. So those are things that I would say.
Deion, you got something?
Yeah, I think it's difficult. So when I got to my school a month in, I dealt with an all-girl brawl right in the middle of it, and they messed up a new suit on my first day wearing it. And it was crazy. It was all over social media. It was just like the girls had planned this out. It was literally 15 girls all around, right? And so one thing I was tasked with was like rectifying that behavior at the junior level with them girls, and constantly just like nothing was working. And I think to Kelsey and Chris's point, like we have to teach young ladies how to express themselves. I think that's all it boils down to. I think that if schools are doing social emotional learning right, which most schools are not, then we can get to the crux of like, a lot of our female scholars simply do not know how to express themselves. And when I'm looking at love and hip hop and basketball wise, how do I express myself when somebody makes me mad? I call them out their name and I go for blood, right? I go for throat. But once again, if the expectation is that the school is a community and the school is your family, then my job is to suppress that behavior and teach you what you should be and how you should behave in these type of situations over and over again. And so what I did was like with those girls who were constantly fighting over and over again, every week they had to check in with the counselor on a weekly basis with all of those girls until all that damn drama was gone, until I saw nothing else on Facebook that I wanted to see, right? Because obviously we got to get to the issue. You don't know how to express yourself. If y'all hate each other, y'all can hate each other. Express that and move the hell on. And I think that that's another issue with a lot of our female scholars that a lot of guys don't have. Guys, they fight maybe once or twice and then it's done, right? It's no longer really an issue. There may be bad blood, but there's not an issue. And I think oftentimes with our female scholars, it happens over and over again, right? And so like, I think that it's just forcing them to truly over and over again learn to express themselves. That goes back to someone brought up the mental health, right? Like talking to someone and learning how to talk about their issues is something that is so crucial. We learn it at such an early age, but oftentimes is lost in the trauma that we experience and endure as we grow up. And so we have to, once again, just start to reteach these things that we think students have, but they truly don't.
Wow.
So
Go ahead.
what Principal Owens said, reteach, they ain't never been taught. And we're dealing with that. You know, first you got to make sure yourself is mentally stable to deal with the situation in front of you, because you too are human as you know, a mentor, educator, what have you. But also I feel that
Yes, sir, DK.
the logic and the emotional part, right? What I found myself doing is when I talk to my female scholars, is that I ask the questions that are a little bit more logical. When I talk to my male students, I have literally a wall where there's different words that expresses emotions. And I literally have to be like, what are you feeling? I'm all right. Well, first of all, I don't know how to spell all right. And second of all, here is a wall of words that you can use to say what you're really feeling. So it's one of those things that you literally have to, you know, reteach, or you just have to start from basics, from ground zero, and work your way up with that.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw this question out to one person because I got another caveat we need to move to, and then I'm gonna try to wrap it up as best we can. If you have questions in the comments, I see a lot of you popping in the comments. I see one question I'm gonna get to shortly. If you got questions, throw them in the comments. We'll try our best to address them as best we can. I do want to shout out one of Chicago's greatest mentors, Dr. Paul Phillips, who popped in here. Shout out to you. Love you so much, man. Here's my question. Given that social media has become the parent, if you will, have our hands as teachers been tied to where we cannot teach them the fundamentals of life because we're so focused on SAT prep? Is that the issue? And whoever want to take it.
So the skill set versus test skills, right?
Yeah.
We do have to get back to skill sets. We need it. Everyone is not college material. And the damn tests are fucking skewed. I mean, the tests are skewed anyway, right? You know, I say couch. The test gives, might say sofa. So there's a disparity there. But we need, programs in school that teach vocation, like woodshop, mechanics, nursing program. Morgan Park used to have a nursing program, high school program within, the school. And once the senior graduated, they already had certificates for that field. We do need, because that right there creates critical thinking skills, right? And I think a lot of critical thinking skills are missing when it comes to our young scholars in their day-to-day decisions while they're at home and at school. So skill sets, I knew a senior a couple of years ago. He was in the counselor's office slamming the phone down, and I went and said, what's wrong with you? I keep messing up. I said, well, you just gotta, hang it up and dial it again. No, I'm supposed to leave a message. He didn't know how to leave a message. They don't know how to write in cursive, let alone write in print. They say put your name on the paper. They put their first name. You definitely have a last name. So it's just little stuff like that that you have to that skill set. You got to do it because they're going to become professionals. And then when we get older, they're going to be taking care of us. And I'm a little scared.
I'm very scared.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And this is for the principals and stuff, because I'm not I don't work in the school system anymore. So I wanted to know, is there a struggle with that, teaching the social skills as well as trying to navigate or teaching them their educational skills? Is that still a big problem now? Because I know some charter schools have adopted, teaching things like life skills, leadership courses. They have these different things where they're learning these different concepts, such as, not necessarily cursive or anything like that, but just basic fundamentals of life, core values, integrity. And I think most schools in the charter networks, they really that first week. I could speak on one, the KIP network. They speak on definitely building their core values, talking about their mission, learning all of these different nuances that make up the school's culture, which they will also later apply in life. So is that still a thing? Because I don't know, because I used to teach that after I got done teaching 6th grade English. So I wanted to know if that was something that was still going on.
It's still happening. We are at Butler. We focus on the culture and the identity of our kids and affirming that over and over and over and over and over and over again. But I personally did not struggle with that as a principal. People outside of Butler struggled, that I didn't struggle with that because I just these standardized tests. They're not written for us. They're not written by us. So they're just, it's a tool. And I'm grateful that we were doing what we were doing, and I wasn't putting so much onus. I mean, definitely want to see them grow academically. My focus was on academic growth. I didn't really give a damn what they scored on the SAT. And now we're seeing a world where SAT and ACT is about to be out the door.
Hold on, I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that.
How much longer is this conversation?
Sorry.
All right. Deion, you got something? We're good.
No, I think that to Chris's point, like, I think that it's a struggle because a school can have a bomb culture plan, but if it doesn't live and breathe every day that scholars, walk into that building, then it truly isn't a plan that is working, right? You just got some nebulous floating through the air, right? And so it has to be that consistency over and over again. But one thing I think that, being in this assistant principal role is difficult. But I think that the hardest thing was being a teacher, being in that classroom, because you do have to couple teaching students these skills, these SAT aligned skills, with these life skills, right? And so, like, my class, what I found was, like, I'm teaching students how to finesse. That's what I'm teaching students how to do. I'm teaching you how to navigate through this world and talk to white people and black people while also being able to sit down at this exam that is not written for you, but learning how to navigate it to make it do what it can do, right? So you can maximize your score and do what you need to do to get moved on. And so I think that it is a little bit difficult for a lot of teachers because when you get so focused on, oh, these are the skills they have to learn, I need to grow this amount of points, right? Like Chris said, we take away like the academic identity when we start to focus on shit like that. And I don't think that that's academic growth, right? Because you can score really well on an SAT, but still not know how to write a college-ready essay, right? And I've seen it over and over again. And so, like, really just teaching students, like, this hybrid type of class of, like, this is how you finesse and this is how you gain these skills that are going to get you through college. Because I think that for a lot of our kids that are surviving, it is because they had teachers in front of them who were teaching them that, yo, these are the skills you need, but here's a little bit of finesse. Because that's how you make it.
Yeah. Wow. All right, y'all. So this is what I'm going to do. Because it looks like we're going to have to do a part 2 of this. But this is what I'm going to do. This next question is you, Ronnie, and then I got a couple questions from those that are in the comments, and then we'll press forward. So, Ronnie, on the lines of if the rumors be true, SAT and ACT may be a thing of the past. You and I both deal with college access in particular. What are the pros and the cons of SAT going away or being a thing of the past?
Well, I mean, a lot of the gentlemen on the night have, said, how the SAT again is not built for, the students that look like us. And it really kind of like sets them up to, not always succeed. So I would say that one of the pros is, like I explain to my students and I teach them about being a holistic student and how, me working in admissions, I know how a person in admissions, thinks or, what they look for and what they expect most of the time. And I think that, in some cases, people look at you as a whole student and not just, what your SAT score was. They want to see your GPA, they want to see your transcript, they want to see if you try to take rigorous courses or were you in AP classes or IB program, were you involved? Did you, do mentoring? I mean, did you volunteer? Just who you were as a holistic person, So I think that with the SAT potentially, being dissolved, I think it can be a benefit to some because again, if you struggle with test taking or, if you have different learning disabilities, it is hard to take the test like that. You know what I'm saying? So if you have like a 3.5 GPA, you're doing well in your courses, you're involved, you're an athlete and you're this and that, but you bomb a standardized test, that doesn't mean that you're not smart. That it just means that you have some learning things and, you have to be better supported in that. But that doesn't mean you still can't be successful. So I think a lot of times when our students don't get, high enough score in the SAT or the ACT, like they're written off quickly. But that's not the case because our students are very intelligent, very smart, and I always push and advocate that my students deserve a chance. So I definitely think that it can be beneficial as a pro. Maybe one con. You know what? I don't even know what is there a con. Because like again, so many people have not been able to go to college like they desire because of this test or these standardized tests when they were smart enough to go and to be successful. But honestly, they didn't have great educators and great mentors like everyone on this line or on this video call tonight that could encourage them to push beyond that and advocate for yourself and see what other options and seek, other opportunities just besides the test. So,
Absolutely. I would say for me, the only con, if there is such a thing, is the competition. So now that SAT and SAT may be a thing of the past, you may have an influx of more applications. So what I'm personally trying to discover is how can I make your application stand out from the rest, aside from the SAT, which now, believe it or not, and I hope I got parents on that are listening, letters of recommendation are now going to be like the drawing selling point, period. So now you had to better find some people that know your child extremely well, whether that's a mentor, I don't care if it's a Catholic priest, like somebody that can legitimately vouch for your child, because now the competition is going to be that much more greater for seats in the schools that our kids want to go to. But here's a question from Takeem Dean, who's a friend of mine. He's a counselor, admissions counselor at Johnson C. Smith in Charlotte, North Carolina. And this is a great question. What else can we do in higher education to partner with the K-12 system to assist in further developing Black males and attracting them to higher education?
I would love to. I just need clarity with that question. Does he mean like attracting them to? He said
college in particular.
Oh, okay.
I think every school that we've went to, there has been some Black organization, Black Student Union, that kind of situation there. And then, of course, if you went to, every school has an education department. And with that education department, you have, a Black group within that. I think just like there is a pipeline from school to prison, we can do a pipeline from high school to college. One of the things that I have seen, is really adopt a high school, adopt a school. If you got a school that wants to be involved in higher from higher end, go and start mentoring these young people, showing them a different way of life. Going into the schools, from pre-K on up. You got the schools that you need young men to come in and read to the class. You got junior high to high school, having young women come in and talk about college life and what it looks like to be a young woman in the workforce and in college, that kind of thing like that. And I think just showing, you got to bring a different world to the young people.
Absolutely.
I agree with that. I was just going to say that I think that, like he said, creating those partnerships, be present in these schools. Like it just sometimes it's crazy to me that like even in Charlotte, like the schools that we have, the colleges that we have, in Charlotte, like why aren't some of these college presidents or some of these deans or some of these admissions directors? I mean, some of these people, why are they not in the schools showing their faces, starting programs, or doing something to help develop and really market their school and market higher education? A lot of the students that we work with, unfortunately, are first generation college students. So unless we expose them, they don't know about college because their parents didn't go to college and their grandparents didn't go to college. So if nobody is in the school, or if you don't have some of these colleges coming to create those partnerships and develop those partnerships with the schools, our kids won't know what higher education is, or even be attracted to higher education.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say two different things briefly. I think that one, like we need a stronger dual enrollment program where scholars are taking college courses. I think as much as we talk about rigor and getting scholars prepared for that first year on campus, we truly don't know what that looks like unless you have taught it, right? And so just really working on that collaboration and coming in and really equipping our students with the skills that they want to see. So when our students do get there, they haven't wasted $30,000 on the year of schooling that they not have to pay back, and they're not even back on that campus. So I think that those dual enrollment programs really need to be beefed up first. And then I think for Black men, they go where opportunities are. And oftentimes, if you are going in education, that is not where the money is. And so what are universities doing to attract Black men? Are you all offering stipends? Are you all saying that you'll be in this type of housing or you'll have access to this type of system to ensure that you are able to have a copacetic run at our school, right? Like, if I know that these Black kids are not going to leave the hood where they have a job because they feel secure in that, how can I bring you to my space and make you feel as secure as possible?
Yeah. Along the points of what everybody just said, in one of my philosophies with pushing to get boys and young men of color to go into college and major in education, we need to start thinking about and taking the model from what athletics do and what college coaches do. They recruit, they build relationships with these boys, and they give them money to school. So if we can pay young men to go to school and go to college to that athletic prowess, can't we do it for what's up here? And that's where I feel like colleges can think different. Think like the coaches think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's so incredible.
Absolutely. All right, next question. Do you think scholars have more time on their hands or less? If so, do you think it is just time or less motivation? And do you think educators are assigning more work or not? How do teachers know when there's too much work and not enough virtually?
Roosevelt is an alumni of the school that I'm currently at. What's up, Roosevelt?
Bro,
you could have
just said y'all gave him too much work. He
You
didn't
say
have
what?
enough time.
Roosevelt makes
That's what he
years from an intern, so he better not come on this talking no crap.
So is that a real thing? Is there a such thing as too much work? I will say this. I think the unfortunate thing for me was having to help teachers with simple things like Google Classroom that should have been a norm before this even happened. So I think the amount of work that kids may have been receiving was on the heels of teachers trying to figure it out in ways that they should already know. So it's kind of like a little bit of a catch-22. Maybe you guys have something different. That was like my personal experience.
I'm gonna be quick on this one. I just think that homework has to be purposeful. That's it, right? There can never be too much homework. There can never be too few. Lord Jesus, too little of homework, right? I think that oftentimes where teachers mess up, if I give homework 5 days a week and scholars know this has nothing to do with nothing, or you just gonna walk in and check it out, then it's pointless, right? I'm not about to assign an assignment, Lord Jesus, just for the sake of you going home and doing work. That's not what I'm going to do. But my scholars knew that if I gave you homework, that meant that we were dealing with that the next day. And that was your ticket into the conversation. That was your ticket into the classroom. Or if you did not have that done, you weren't ready for class that day. And whatever that meant is whatever that meant, right? And so when you consistently are telling scholars like, yes, like you got homework, and they know it means nothing, they're not seeing it impact their grades, they aren't learning from it, they don't see it as fruitful, then why would I complete it? So I think that oftentimes scholars do have too much on their hand because many times we're giving out assignments that mean nothing to them. They have no cultural relevance, right? They don't even understand, and oftentimes it's printed out from somebody that the teacher don't even know, right? And so just making sure that the assignments that we give students to take home are fruitful and going to actually impact their learning and impact what tomorrow looks like.
Key word there, ladies and gentlemen, is fruitful. Fruitful. All right.
And then also making sure.
Go, Kel.
Oh, I was just gonna say, just making sure that the homework too, it appeals to their creativity, where it causes them to look within and think critically and not just fill in the blanks. And I look at some people's homework and I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is a little insulting. Like, I mean, God, dog. So I think it's just like those assignments. Like, I think more of my creative self came out in college when I had to write and when I had to express how I felt on a topic. And my teacher, what she said, it's no right or wrong answer. I just want to see how you guys feel about this issue or this topic. And I think that if they didn't look at the homework as being burdensome, they will begin to express their creativity through the work that they do. So they, like Deion said, just making sure that the work is fruitful and it is going to bring profit. Like, because I look at that all the time. Is this going to, like, the word profitable means to have something left when the season is over. So when the season of high school is over, will they need what you gave them for homework later in life? If that's not the case, why give it to them? I mean, are they going to use a skill when they get to their sophomore year, their junior year? Are all of these things like a staircase? Are they building and going somewhere? Are these assignments going to take them somewhere to develop certain skill sets and certain type of principles that they need? So I
hit mute, Kel.
Yeah. So what I was.
No, I'm good. I was done.
Go, DK.
Learn your times management. And it's simple when you're dealing with schoolwork. And I always tell, some courses are going to be boring. In my master's, when I was getting my master's, I had to take a bunch of law classes. I laughed at every dry joke that white man said, but I had to learn my times management with that, right? Full job, doing this, class, you got to learn it. And that's what I tell my students. I said, you got to learn times management. You want to be a part of the football team. You want to be a cheerleader. You want to do that. Well, you're a student. It says student athlete. You're a student first. Some stuff is just going to be boring, but you got to learn your times management. 2K, all that stuff is going to be there, but you got to make sure that you spend your time wisely.
All right. That is good. There's a resource that just popped up on the screen that I want everybody to make sure that you write down. Hakeem Dean, I said he was in admissions, but he's actually Dean of Students at Johnson C. Smith. This is what he just said. As Dean of Students, I have really standardized tests for the fall enrollment, and I have scholarship dollars for students who are interested. Please contact me. All right, so this is what we're going to do. Parents, teachers, college counselors, if you want his information, DM me. So hit me up, and I will get that information to you. I'll make sure that you connect, or you can reach out to Johnson C. Smith directly and ask for Takeem Dean. I thank you so much for that, Takeem. That is very, very big of you to offer that to the platform tonight. I really, really, really appreciate you for that. Last question of the night. We're going to wrap this up. We're definitely going to have to do a part 2 because I think there's a lot that we just didn't get to, but I think we really lifted up a lot tonight. My last question of tonight is about exposure. More often than not, a bunch of our kids, in particular Black kids, are not exposed to what we consider the simple pleasures of life. Me, for instance, I have a lot of my Black boys who have never been to downtown Chicago. They have not seen anything north of 43rd. And for me, it makes me feel bad that a lot of them won't know how to deal with certain social things in this world simply because they just haven't been exposed to it. So my last question of the night, how do we make sure that we teach them, but we also expose them?
I'll just say this. This is one of my philosophies when I was in the classroom, and one of my philosophies as an educator, period. Experiential learning is the best learning. I mean, it is incumbent upon the school. That's a part of education, is providing experiences where kids can interact with different things and opening their eyes. That's what a school should be doing. If we're not exposing them to various things, then we're not doing our jobs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anybody
I
else?
completely agree with Chris said. Exposure changes behaviors. And I've seen that firsthand. You talked about your students that haven't been downtown. This year, I was fortunate enough to coordinate during the spring break. I was going to take up to 150 young men on a college tour down south. Of course, with COVID, the pandemic, it was stopped. But in the past, I've been on that trip and I've seen young men light up because one, they never felt heat like that before, but then two, they got to see what it was like to live in different places. They got to before I moved to Chicago, I worked at Philander Smith College, which is an HBCU in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I had these young men who were from Chicago, ironically, and all they would do, they would stand outside my window. And so one day I was just like, y'all got to take y'all butt to class. Like, Philander Smith is not cheap. And one of them told me, he said, we don't get to stand outside at home. And I was just like, oh, well, outside is still going to be here, but you still need to go to class. But it was just one of those learning moments. It was just like, man, they are down south and everything is different down south. And, they've probably never spoken to a white person in the genuine conversation. They hearing the Southern twang from another person that looks like them. So it's different. But exposure changes behaviors. And if we don't expose our young people to what we've experienced in life, or at least try to, then we're still doing them a disservice.
Deion.
Yeah, I think that they've hit it. I think both DK and Chris, it's incumbent upon the school. I think that now the school is an integral part of every community, right? And especially communities that teach students that look like us. And a part of that is the learning experience that scholars have while they are within the institution. And that learning experience is not, subjected to the confines of that wall. And we have to get students out. So we have to get students on those college trips as early as freshman year. And every year they are in that school. Scholars should be visiting universities. To that extent, science classroom, it baffles me how science classrooms are not having experimental learning that takes students outside of the actual classes. And so one thing that I really push for is, as we are looking at school budgets, learning experiences or field trips have to be a part of our budget. We have to budget it out. We have to be prepared for it because scholars have to learn. Even if that means me taking a class of West Side, I'm on the West Side, so they're a different type. To a damn Hamilton play, right? They may not understand a lot, but I'm gonna teach them what the historical relevance of this is, and you are going to be out, and now you have had the experience of what it means to be in a theater, sitting down. You just need that experience, right? And I think that oftentimes, our students are left out of conversations because they don't have input, because they don't have the experience. Right? It's like if I'm making a joke about Shakespeare, you're not gonna know it if you have not read any type of Shakespeare. And so it's important that we are constantly just putting those experiences in front of scholars, and that started in taking them on field trip, but also asking them to engage in service learning projects, right? And not just service learning where you are cleaning up the streets of your hood. That means just really broadening their scope and really broadening and letting them see the world and see the city and see whatever it is. to make their experience in schooling more fruitful.
Absolutely. Bills.
I'll also say, yeah, I was gonna add too that exposure does not always mean expensive. A lot of times when people or certain staff leaders, they hear exposure, they think expensive, and that's not the case. I took, and similar to DK's experience, I have a group of 128 students that I see every Wednesday between the ages of 16 to 24, from the Austin School, from Marshall, from Christ the King to OPRL. Now, everybody knows that Oak Park River Forest is a little bit different from Marshall and Austin. So they had these stigmas about kids that lived in Oak Park. They said, well, them kids over there, they lame, they nerds, they don't know nothing about us and this, that, and the other. And literally just taking them across the borderline of Austin and Lake, they were opened up to a whole new world. And the kids from Oak Park were opened up to their world. And I think that that's the thing too. There's a lot of segregation that happens with our students just because they don't know what's on the other side of Western, or what's on the other side of Pulaski, what's on the other side. I'm just naming West Side streets because that's where I grew up, on the other side of Austin. And I think that if we can show them that those same kids that live in Oak Park, they have some of the same problems that you have, and then some of the things that you are fighting so hard for, they already have and they don't appreciate. So it's like these different things, they show kids a different walk of life. And I didn't have to spend $200 to do it. I didn't have to spend $5,000 to do it. Just bringing other types of kids into the school, or connecting with those high schools and bringing them to those grammar schools. That's a whole nother level of exposure right there. To see somebody that's a senior come talk to me, an 8th grader, and I'm getting ready to go where they're graduating from, that brings a whole nother level of eye-opening experience for me. And that makes me want to excel. That makes me want to get there. And I think that like a big brother, big sister type of thing we used to have, I think we should go back to that, because that was a realm of exposure. That was a realm of getting kids familiar to what was going to be for them. So I think that that's a thing, So.
Ronnie, last one.
So I wholeheartedly agree with everything that has been said. I'm sort of in a unique situation, being that I do work for a TRIO program. We receive our funding from the Department of Education. So I am afforded a lot of amazing opportunities that I get to do for my students, and not just my students, because I do something for the whole school. So I believe in, giving to all if I can, but it is just amazing to see, how my students, get to react when, I take them on spring break trips. We've been to Battle of the Band trips in Atlanta. I've taken them to DC. We've gone to Alabama. We've gone to Florida. I took them down to Bethune-Cookman one year. I take them to the Aggie Eagle Classic every year. We do a lot of things. I do a lot of programming where I bring in caterers, and I have cookouts. I do a lot of different programming, and I expose them to a lot. We go on college tours probably 4 times a month. We probably see 4 schools a month, if not more. So exposure is a really big part of a student experience. A lot of times I take my older upperclassmen into freshman and sophomore classes, and I let those students that I've had the ability to pour into and develop, pour back into the younger ones. So exposure, like I said, is really huge, and I do believe that it does change behavior, and it's a big part of being a successful student.
Wow. Listen, everybody, this has been eye-opening, rich, to say the least. I know we went a little bit long, but it was needful. Again, we're definitely going to have to do a part 2, because these guys, let me tell you this, community is everything. These guys that you see on the screen, They help me to be me. You're only as best as the community that you surround yourself with. And I just want to personally say, in front of everybody, in front of the world, that if it had not been for these guys on the screen in one place or another in my life, I don't know where I would be or who I would be, especially with the amount of things that I have taken on as a young Black man. So I applaud each and every one of you. I hope that some young Black man is watching, that you can see that there is success beyond athletics, there's success beyond rap. Nothing against that at all. I love rap. I love sports. But there are some very highly successful Black men that you should be trying to surround yourself with. And the one thing I can tell you about these men on the screen, they are not highfalutin. If you literally want to reach out to them to get some advice, if you want to reach out to them and just pour your heart out, I promise you, just reach out to them, reach out to us, and we will literally meet you where you are. So again, thank you, DK, Dekevious Wilson, who is a mental health mastermind, literally. Deion Owens, who is the newly appointed assistant principal of North Lawndale College Prep on the west side. Kelsey King, who is the founder of Without Reservation. If you are looking for something for your kids to do this summer in Chicago, please hit him up. It's a wonderful, wonderful program, bar none. Mr. Ronnie Compton, who is the trio and the college access extraordinaire. And last but not least, Mr. Christopher Goins, who is just all things to all people, who is presently working with our forever president, Mr. Barack Obama, right now. And so, again, thank you guys so very much. I love you all. Good night, everybody. Look forward to seeing you all for part 2 very soon. Hang tight, guys. Good night, everybody.